All right, everybody. We're going to get started with our afternoon session of today. Thank you, everybody, for being here and supporting us on Today All About Women. So we're going to get started with our session here in main stage. I want to introduce Miss Cristina Olivares, that's going to come up on stage to give us a great session about the key elements that power community-led growth. Welcome, Cristina.
Hear me like loudly or use the mic? Okay, we'll use the mic. Oh yeah, we're on live stream. Sure. Okay. I like to move around though, so I might come around. Okay. Hello everyone. I am thrilled to be here. I'm originally from the Rio Grande Valley, so this is exciting to come back to my hometown and give back. Today we are going to focus on the key elements that power community-led growth. And before we get started with the actual workshop, we're going to play a little networking game because I absolutely love for everybody to get to know one another. So if you use the Whova app, you might know that I had asked a question about which community member roles are you? Are you a leader, an influencer, a newcomer, or a supporter? And a little bit later, we're going to talk about each one of these. But for right now, for the next 10 minutes, we are going to divide into a little circle. So we have the back over here. Then we have up here, and then maybe this way. So for the next 10 minutes, I want you to figure out how each of you can collaborate based on the roles that you feel that you identify. So do you identify as a leader, an influencer, a newcomer, or a supporter? And then also ask yourself a little bit about how each of you can leverage each other when it comes to these different roles. Everybody? Good? All right, 10 minutes. Go network. No, this is... Got 5 more minutes. Kind of wrap up. All right, 2 minutes. Kind of wrap up those conversations. All right, let's start wrapping up those conversations. We're going to get back into presentation mode. Thank you all so much. Woo! Wrapping up those conversations. Awesome. All right, how did everybody feel after doing this? Did we meet a lot of new people? Awesome. Did you feel really passionate about the communities in the room right now? Awesome. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about myself before we get into the actual presentation. I am an award-winning social media and business coach and a TEDx speaker. I really have mastered the art of community from such a young age of 8 years old. I was on AOL and on all these different social media platforms, learning what it's like to actually build community. And one of the things that community building is all about is the fact that we are mixing in our own fusion of personalities, as well as getting to know how we can be a service to each other, which is exactly what that game was supposed to be, is you are learning a little bit about your community and you're getting in front of different audiences and understanding how can you be a service to that person. And like I said before, I have my own community called Hustle and Socialize, and really that has been a culmination of all of the community building skills that I have learned throughout the years to really build the community that I have today. So our why for today is we are going to focus on 4 different aspects of community building. We're going to focus on what are the key elements of structuring your community. Then we're going to talk about the philosophy and beliefs that you need to have when it comes to understanding your own communities and why the beliefs matter so much with your community members. And then we're going to focus on finding and building the community that you seek to build, as well as understanding data to power your community. Because if you are not utilizing your data, then actually building your community is going to be really, really hard, because the data really drives actual decisions. So I want to know from the crowd, what age did you first experience community building? Anybody? Front row, back row. Yes, sir. Amazing. What do you feel left a lasting impact on you from that? Thank you so much. Anybody else? Yeah. Yep. That's beautiful. That's really the basis of what true community is, right? When we think about how we might not know somebody and immediately we like step in and just help each other. I think that's what makes us so unique too as the region here as well in the Valley is we really are focused on building that community, and our families are really like community driven. Anyone else? No? Well, the first age that I experienced community building was when I was maybe about 5 or 6 years old. My dad was the president of our school board in Mission CISD. And I just remember seeing the way he would lead and the way that he would, drive two different areas in different school districts and making sure that he, was there for the community. In fact, he was president of the school board when the Alton bus crash happened in 1990. And so that was just hearing about that story and hearing about everything that they would do for that community really made a lasting impact on me as a community builder, and is one of the reasons why I am really at the forefront of making sure that every single piece of my business and my company are part of a community. So there are 3 core elements that you need to have when it comes to the actual structure of building a community. The first one is looking at the community that you seek to build. So when we think about community building, we have to remember that it's not about us as a business owner, right? We are looking to see how the communities that we shape, who those people are within our own community, how we can be a service to them, but also what are their needs and their wants, and what is the problem that you are trying to solve, right? Then we think about the philosophy and beliefs. So that at the heart of is your core values. When we think about how we love to be a part of something, we always think because of their mission. So when we think about any type of community, and in the Whova app, I had asked who is in a brand or a company who is really doing a great job at building community, right? And I saw a lot of answers about HEB. I saw even Nathan, you were in there. I saw eBridge. I saw a couple of people from Brownsville. And so when we think about who is at the heart of everything, we have to be really mission driven, and we have to really think about the actual values that we want to be a part of, because the community's values really reflect our own, right? If we're a part of something and they believe in something, then that means we're kind of like that direct reflection. So it's really all about the philosophy and beliefs that you hold. And then, like I said, the data. Data is going to get you way further than anything else because it is coming directly from your key audience. And that's how you get to build programming for conferences. That is how you get to build your offers and your services. And so understanding the key elements of that data is really going to drive not just better decision making, but also driving revenue growth. So what is a community, right? Just a basic 101 is a brand community is a place where people who have an emotional connection to your brand connect with each other and with your brand. So there is a difference between building an audience and building a community. So when we think about just building an audience, that's really definitely your followers. That's the people who maybe are not as connected or as they might be. They kind of know you, but they don't really interact with you. They're just kind of a lurker. And then you have building a community. And I really am going to go into it a little bit with the Swifties because they are the heart and soul of what community building is. But when you build a community, that means these people are your number one fans. When you jump, they're gonna jump. When you do something, they're right there with you, right? And you might not see that from direct audiences because at the same time, audiences are just there just to be there. Whereas a community, when you do something, they are going to support you at any way, shape, or form. So why community now? Why is it important? Well, one, we know that ads are just not working anymore, right? There's so much saturation in the social media industry. There's so much saturation just in marketing in general. And with the development of AI, we are now starting to become more skeptical of what is real and what is not real. So when we think about ads, we also know that AI can now start putting ads that we didn't even create. And in fact, if you follow the Met Gala, Katy Perry was not at the Met Gala. Somebody created an AI version of her being at the Met Gala and completely changed, people's perceptions. So we have to go above and beyond because traditional ads are just not working in the same way that they were. And also, many people are moving away from social media. So how many of you are currently on, let's just say, TikTok? Okay, we all know what is happening with TikTok at this point in time, right? So we're seeing more people, yes, be on social media, but have conflicting relationship with social media. But we also know that people don't want to be on these platforms for a long period of time because there's so much misinformation and there's also just so much saturation in the market. And then also, trust is really critical when we think about building relationships. Everybody that is here today is here because we trusted somebody to get us to this place, right? We trusted somebody that said, hey, we want you to come out to RGV Startup Week. And without hesitation, because you trusted somebody, you were like, yes, let's go, right? But we also have to remember that community building takes time. It takes a while for a lot of people to start building that trust. It takes a little bit of time with your content and the things that you are putting out in order to build know, like, trust. And that's why when we think about social media in general, we want to preface the community building aspect of our social media strategy because we know that it takes time. So there are these 3 types of community. So the first is the community of product. This is where the product is driving the community. So a great example of that is Peloton. When we think about the Peloton community, we know that immediately you're going to get this product. And a lot of people are not really driven by the product, but the community is what gets people to actually work out, to actually change their life, to actually have that emotional connection to where you're like, okay, I've never worked out on a bike ever in my life, but because we've got these amazing instructors who have great social media presence, and now we're gonna get on this app and we're gonna be competing with one another, or we're gonna be all together, now that's gonna drive the sales of the product. So this is where the community of the product is really driven by that community to get you to actually purchase the product. So when we think about building a startup and we are maybe a CPG brand or we have a product-based business, we want to start building the community first before we ever get the product out into the market. We want to start using the community to be our test cases so that we have actual data and we have their testimonials to start building that product. And then we have the community of practice. So this is really driven on sort of a belief system, the things that you practice on, that maybe a community member has a specific interest, right? So when we think about still Peloton, right, they have a way of life. They have a way of just a nurturing aspect of how they get people to actually exercise and get their bodies moving. We think about how the community is driving those beliefs and those systems to get you to actually execute on something. And then we have the community of interest. And this is where your community is really driven by something that is of interest. So this right here, this community that we are experiencing right now is driven by entrepreneurship. It's driven by innovation. It's driven by, ideals and things that we want to accomplish together as a region. And so as a community of interest, we are going to usually flock to people that have similar aspects of us that we see in each other. And that's kind of why we had played the game before, where it's like, hey, we're all interested in entrepreneurship. We're all interested in innovation. How can we collectively work together in order to make magic happen? So these three all kind of align with the types of community, but really ultimately when you are thinking about the companies that you're building or when you're thinking about the product that you are thinking, yes, we want to drive in sales, and yes, we want to have, our problems, the problems of our audience being solved, but at the heart and soul, it is the community. Which brings me to the power of the Swifties. All right, we need to talk about this. And I know some people are a little bit annoyed, but we're still going to talk about it anyway. So what if I told all of you that they are the masterminds? These Swifties are the masterminds. Why? Because Taylor Swift doesn't have to dish out so much money in advertising because her community does it for her, right? When we think about even in the early days of her career, right, a lot of it was driven by the community. So this is actually 2023 stats. This is from the Eras Tour. So we know that $1,279 were being spent just on ticket sales alone, on outfits, on plane rides, on whatever, right? That was just the average. The community in itself was able to not only pack these stadiums, but then when Taylor Swift decided, hey, we're going to film this and we're going to put this into theaters, which, by the way, that is called repurposing your content. When she decided to go repurpose her content into theaters, guess what? The community sold out those theaters and ended up making record sales for AMC theaters, right? And now AMC, who literally was in the red because of the pandemic, is now rising back into the top because of her power. We could easily say the same about Beyonce, because I know when you mention Taylor Swift, you got to mention also the Beehive, right? They are on the same wavelength, and it has nothing really to do with the person itself, but everything to do with the community of these people. They feel the emotional connection between Taylor, between Beyonce, and they automatically connect with other people who feel that same emotional connection. And why? Because Taylor Swift, as a brand, because we know she is the #1 personal brand, she is directly bringing in emotional ties with her music. She's bringing relatability. She's bringing authenticity. And she's also bringing in trust, because people trust her, especially when it comes to different things that are outside of music, right? We also want to know what she's doing, where she's going to. The latest that I saw was she put out a personal video when she was doing her new album, and the hair clip got sold out from the direct person that created that hair clip. Same thing with those jerseys that she was wearing, right? Immediately she wore a jersey to that football game, and guess what? The woman who was there got sold out. So when we think about being as inventive as her, we have to know that the first place that it starts with is your community. There are 4 layers to every community. So first, we want to start with market. So these are people who are talking about you. You want to know the conversations that are happening about your brand, and the easiest way to get to know the conversations that are happening is by doing social listening. How many of you actually know what is being said about RGV Startup Week right now? Good or bad? No? So one way that you can find out is by looking at the sentiment of people who are reposting, or looking at the sentiment on Twitter, if people are still tweeting about it, right? Looking at the sentiment of what is being shared, right? So these are the people that are actually talking about you. So right now, as a conference organizer, you want to say, okay, if we are getting a lot of people that are on the app right now and that are actually, talking about us, what is actually being said, so that we can know, hey, our community really likes this about what we were doing, or our community really wants more of this, right? And then, of course, you have your audience. So again, there's a difference between audience and community, but these are the people that are actually consuming your content and are actually interacting with you on a really great basis on social media, right? So these people are the people that are connecting with you on the app, or these are the people that are connecting with you when it comes to, they meet you here, now we're gonna start following each other, now we're gonna actually create a two-way conversation, and we're gonna build community within our own. And then you have your members. So these are people that engage with you and other people on those social media channels. So as a member, one way that I am a part of being a member of RGV Startup Week is that I'm also really collectively involved in San Antonio Startup Week. So now y'all are also connected with us, and now we can create this big ecosystem on social media to where we are now building community within our own collective cities. And then you have the internal people. So internal organizations, building a community with the people who are actively involved in your businesses or your companies, right? They are your biggest brand advocates. So if you have employees, you want them to actually form a community within themselves, because they're going to be the people that are going to advocate to work with you. They're going to be the people that are going to advocate to come to your business and really kind of push through the layers of those communities. And now this leads me to the whole entire point of the game. So one of the things that the game was really meant to help cultivate was, it was really meant to cultivate which do you identify as, so that you can understand how to collectively work together in your appropriate leadership roles. So one, as a leader, this community type is all about you being the leader, the main person that is maybe going to be the connector, right? You kind of pushing forward your mission and your vision. As a newcomer, you might want to be pairing up with somebody who's an influencer, because the influencer can really make your own brand be bigger than life, because they are also going to be the connectors. So being a newbie to a community is actually a really great thing, because one, you can actually use all of these types to actually align and get your whole entire brand up to speed. As a supporter, that might be that, hey, I might not never buy from you, right? I might never spend $1 on your brand. However, I'm going to refer you. I'm going to get you to come over here, wherever you want to go. And that way you could be a supporter for the people that are involved in your own community. So each one of you has a specific role. I want to know right now, which one did you identify with, and what did you learn about that person that you connected with as well? Anybody? Exactly. That is one, she's a great example of that too. It's the fact that, like, no matter what, at the end of the day, even though we might identify as one specific role, each of us plays all 4 of these roles. As a community person and as a community member, we're all responsible for lifting the tide up, which means that, hey, I might be a newbie to a different community, but I know that as a newbie, I can also be a leader in order to lift everybody up. And that's why the culture, right? This is called the culture of community that you seek to build. It's because at the end of the day, our culture that we create in our communities is extremely important because that's what makes people want to buy from one another, right? If you go to a different community and you do not feel aligned with their mission or their vision, or maybe you just don't feel it's as inclusive as you wish it could be, you might not want to be a part of that community, right? There's a lot of different communities where I recognize like, hey, I don't think this is in alignment with who I am right now, but that's okay. Maybe it's somebody else that can fill in that seat, right? As a community organizer, that's one thing that I always look at is, all right, what is the culture that I'm trying to build within my own community? And how do I want that culture to fit in the way that we grow in every year that we have our conference? And so each one of us actually holds the specific things. So when we think about community, we also know that it's also in both sectors. We know that it's online and it's offline. So we want to establish ourselves as the authority in our space. And the one way that you could do that is through social media content, right? I know that for some of us, creating social media content is a little bit out of the ordinary. For some of us, we don't really like to be on camera. We don't really like to have XYZ, right? But when you start establishing yourself as an authority, that's when people really start to understand who you are. We start building the know, like, trust factor, and we start getting people in our mission, in our vision. We start now influencing perceptions, and we start influencing people to come into our sphere of orbit and really kind of getting to the point where now we're not just increasing our revenue, but we're also leaving a lasting impact. We know that effective storytelling and brand building through video is one of the keys when it comes to content marketing. So when we think about how we're going to build communities, we have to think about what story we are trying to tell. What emotional ties are we going to create to get people to be a part of our community, right? When we think about storytelling, when I was coming here, Natalie was telling me about the pitch competition that was happening and about just the stories that were being told in the pitch competition. And the winner had that emotional tie, right? The winner had that storytelling effect to where we as a community believed in his story. We believed in the work that he was doing. So when we think about how we're going to start marketing as our own businesses, and not only us, but how we want the community to market for us, we have to think about what story we are trying to tell. And really, the community is your biggest selling factor, right? I think when we think about product, service, any community of interest, we know that the community is going to be the one that's going to tell our story. So what story are we really wanting to tell? And we also want to take that online connection into the offline touch points. So one of the things that I love about Whova, the app, is we also use it too. One of the things that I love about that app is immediately you are able to create online connection, and immediately you can bring that into an offline world. And so all week we were interacting in the app, we were interacting on social media, and now when we come in person, we already know a little bit about each other, we already know how we can collaborate with one another, we already know how we want to do business with each other, and that just makes it even better from a brand perspective, and it also makes it even better from the online connection. So I want to challenge you, after you leave Startup Week, I want to challenge you to go above and beyond with your social media and the way that you create online connection, because it's really important in order to do that in both sectors, because who you are online has to be reflected in who you are offline and vice versa. So what are the core values that your community upholds? So this is the second point about the beliefs and the value systems that you have. So every community, there is always a value system, right? So for example, the community that I have, we go by 4 values. We have passion as one of our main values. We have authenticity, which is sometimes a buzzword in our community, right? But we always want to come in very unapologetic. We have innovation at the heart and soul, and we also have community as one of the core values. So understanding how you can create these core principles in your brand is really going to take your community far, because now once you have that, you are going to be able to attract people who have the same belief system as you, and they're going to feel really inclined to want to support you. So when you think about that, I want you to ask the question of what are some principles or beliefs that can guide in my decision making whenever I'm thinking about my community in mind, right? So you want to have, when it comes to creating these beliefs, you want to have what unifying message do you want to unify people around? So for example, my community, Hustle and Socialize, we focus on connection, unapologetic visibility, and building profitable businesses. And those are the 3 core main beliefs that we hold, that we're going to be really making sure that at every single event, every single online interaction, we're making sure that we're building those connections. We're making sure that unapologetic visibility is at the forefront, and that we're working to build those profitable businesses. And then we want to give ownership to the people. Power to the gente, right? I know that the community is the ownership of Hustle and Socialize. I'm just the driver. I am just the person that is creating this change and this ripple effect, but the people that are involved in it are the real reasons why this community exists. So you all are the main reason why RGV Startup is here, right? Because every single one of you believed in it so much that you said, yeah, we want to be a part of this. So now, moving forward, we want to make sure that the community is at the heart of every single decision that is made for the next one, and the next one, and the next one, right? And then we think about the climb. Miley Cyrus has that beautiful song called The Climb, and that's what we really need to be thinking about. We want to know, how are we going to grow together, right? What are as the brand continues to grow, as your companies continue to grow, sometimes your audience who was with you from the get-go might not come along with you when you're in year 5 or in year 10. You might have a whole entire different community than you did when you first built your community, and that's okay. But you want to know, how are you going to be able to grow together? Which is why it's really, if you're a service-based business, you want to be sure that you have those sliding scale offers, to where maybe your community comes with you at a lower product or a lower tier service, and then they gradually move and they climb with you as you continue to grow. And these 3 things are really important to have as you really start thinking about the mission and the vision and the philosophy and the beliefs that you have for your own community. I love data. I am a huge data nerd. I was one of those people as a kid that would review the Nielsen ratings for TV, and I was huge on it. So I want to show you a little bit of how you can make data-driven decisions. So like I said, I am the founder and CEO of my own community called Hustle and Socialize. And one of the things that we focus on is 2 main things. We focus on what challenges each of our audience is facing, and we focus on what are their desired outcomes that they want to experience when they come to the conference. And so first, you can use data from surveys or feedback forms or registration forms to really start collecting those responses. But one of the things that we do is, okay, we know that right now, from a challenge that these women are facing, we know that marketing, growing their business, consistency, financial aspects, we know that these are everything that they are facing. So when we start thinking about what type of programming do we want to have in the next year, we know that marketing is a huge one. So maybe we're going to have a couple of workshops that are based on digital marketing or just marketing in general. We know that their financials are really hard. So how can we pair up with a bank who is going to help us to get the word about financial literacy, right? And then we also start using this in our own marketing. So a secret ingredient here is when you are creating your sales pages or when you're creating your marketing content, you want to use your audience's verbiage. So when we think about a video that we see, how many of us have said, oh my God, I feel like they're speaking to me, right? I feel like that was meant for me. That's because they understand their audience. And so these key words are a lot of the things that we're going to start putting in our own marketing. We're going to start putting in our copywriting. And I know AI is a big thing, but we could also utilize AI to help us develop that piece of content that we want to have. And then the desired outcome. That is a big key that we use to develop what feelings do we want them to feel after they experience our event, our conference. So we know that a big chunk of that is networking. They want to network, they want to build connection, they want to learn, they want to grow. So these are the emotional ties, the emotional feelings that we're going to want to have in every aspect of that building. And so when we think about data and feedback, I want you to start thinking about how can you utilize specific data points? How can you start collecting data from your audience to start making better decisions? Because the data will never lie. Things will change, but how your audience feels, how your community feels is way more important than something else that changes. So even we want our audience to feel seen and heard, and the best way to do that is through data. Again, this is a little bit of more of the data that we collect as well. So we know that some of the key takeaways that they had was these different touch points. And so moving into planning out the following year's programming, we know that they really kind of felt more in alignment with these results. And so we're going to make sure that, again, we put that into our marketing. At the end of the day, we know that we are driven by the community. So this wheel right here is really what community-led growth is all about. We start first with the circle in with community, and then we go into building the relationship with our audience, creating content, creating engagement, building trust with your product, your sales, success support, and your marketing. So I have a special offer for community. If you want to experience community, and if you want to take a little drive to San Antonio, Texas, one of the things that I am offering everybody here in this room is a 20% promo code to experience community at Hustle and Socialize. You can use this code up to May 31st. And this is an opportunity for you to experience what building community and community building is when you're in a room with incredible women. Are there any questions? Do we have time for questions? Questions?
No? I have a question. Okay, beautiful presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
I've seen you posting everywhere all the time, writing this post, lengthy posts. Like, you take your time to write this. Mm-hmm. What's your daily routine? What's the daily routine of a community builder? Because I see you everywhere all the time, doing all these things, coming all the way here. How do you do it? Like, do you have a team of 1,000 people doing this for you? How you do it?
No, I wish I had a team of 1,000 people. I really take a lot of time to understand everybody that is in my inner circle, but I also designate specific days for specific tasks. So I'm not always, creating social media content every day. I would go crazy. So I have like a specific day where I'm only focusing on building out a week or two worth of content. And then I'm also taking time to get to know people and get to know my community. I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned in my career is it's awesome to be the talker, because I love to talk, but it's even better to be the listener. And so usually when I meet people and I network, as much as I love to talk about myself, I really love to just be quiet and to listen to these people, because then I'm understanding what is the problem that they are having. How can we solve it? What are the things that maybe I'm not seeing from this person that we could create in social? And then it helps me understand how to create content on social media, and then also what do they need from us community as community builders? Because a lot of people, we're all nuanced. There's so much nuance in communities. But it's really all about like understanding those different factors.
Thanks, that's useful. Any other questions? Yeah.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. What is your background like, or what made you want to start your own business and community building?
I wanted to be a television news reporter. So I wanted to be on Good Morning America. I wanted to be on E! And when I got out of college, I couldn't find a job. And so I was really focused on, okay, if I can't find a job in TV reporting, if a door is not opening, where can I go open a window? And at that point, that was at the early beginning stages of social media. So this was 2012, where businesses were now starting to learn how to do social media. And so I saw that problem and said, hey, I think that this would be something that I could really do. So I became a social media manager. But I started a blog called The Social Butterfly Gal to document everything that I was doing. And then I was recognizing that, hey, I could really do social media as a profession. And immediately I got into it. And then I started my second business because, quite frankly, in San Antonio, I was not seeing any organization that had a focus on Latinas. And I got really angry. And so I said, well, I could get angry and I can complain about it, or I could go do something about it. And so I started the second business. And so it really just, I think for me, I know they were talking a lot about failure. It took a lot of rejection to understand, like, how does that fuel your purpose? And how can you maybe see, hey, if something is not working, where can I pivot to the next place to start creating my own business, my own life, right? So yeah, that's my background.
One other question? Yes.
Hi. You mentioned a lot about data and how much you love data. What is a key data point that you look at when you're looking at growing your community?
I look at from the time a person comes to the very first touch point to multiple touch points and what their growth was year over year. So if I know that a woman came to the conference and she was only making maybe about like $25,000 in revenue, right? Then I start looking at, okay, how many times have they come to a specific resource? Like, have they been applying for grants? Have they been, doing different things? And then if they work with me in this side, where are we growing that? And what is the rate of success for that, right? And also, how many people are still staying in business long after maybe 1 year, 2 years? Because obviously the pandemic was one of those things where a lot of people who started with our community in the first ended up not they ended up ending their business after the pandemic, right? So I look at that. I also look at just what are the things that they are trying to accomplish as business women, as business owners, and who in the community can be a really great resource for them to grow. So they might not work with me, but I know like, hey, there's another person that actually fits that. Let's connect them, which is why, understanding your roles is going to be really key, because they might not buy from you, but maybe I could go ahead and, give them something. So there's that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's all the time we have for questions. So a big round of applause for Christina.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Cristina, for a fantastic panel and a presentation. Really appreciate. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys, learned and, were able to get all these insights. Did we do Q&A? Yeah. Oh, okay. Perfect. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Well, then, thank you so much. Our next panel will begin in about 10 minutes. We just have to redo the stage and set it up. It's for mompreneurs. So if you want to hear some storytelling about these moms in the world of entrepreneurship, stay tuned. We also have 2 other sessions that are going on in the back. And let me tell you which ones are those. We have a session that really has to do with professional development, workforce development. If you want to know some skills about how to, elevate your skill set in terms of professional development, we invite you to join that session over there in the back with our professional workforce and economic development for UTRGV team. They will be leading that session. And let me just tell you what the other session is, because I don't remember. Sustainability, yes, Robles, a really, really good session with Dr. Silvia Robles. Break panel here, starting in about 10 minutes. Thank you, everybody. Take a water break. Thank you.